Welcome, everybody, to our episode of Incubator Weekly today. We've got Matt Peterson on today for the second time now. How's it going, Matt?
It's going good.
Good. If any of you don't remember, we did have Matt on it's been about 5 or 6 months now ago, where we first started to seriously talk about let's get a JavaScript SDK. Let's build it ourselves. I mean, we've been doing JavaScript SDK stuff for a long time with AJ, but that was on the core side of things, the core chain, replacing things like Dash Core Lib and Wallet Lib into more modern versions. And platform support we hadn't had that until we again started working on it. Well, I feel like it's been almost a year that we started talking about it, adding platform support after it went live on mainnet. Was when it really got serious. We brought you in to help us with some of the encoding stuff because the Rust code is kind of the source of truth right now. The Rust SDK is the source of truth for what platform is accepting as valid data on the server side, of course. And then DCG has a Rust SDK to use on the client side. And then we also have a JavaScript SDK that is built using some WASM code that's built and compiled from the Rust code, but we don't have a native JavaScript SDK. That is what we need. As far as I'm concerned, we discussed a little bit about it just now before the show, what the pros and cons of having that just in native JavaScript. It does kind of boil down to what are your priorities, what are your goals. But as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle to get people to adopt a completely brand new paradigm, at least traditional Web 2 developers. It's going to be an uphill battle for us to try to convince them that building on a blockchain is a good source for your application state to live on a blockchain instead of AWS or Azure or Google Cloud or whatever. But that is kind of the goal. You and I also talked, Matt, with AJ yesterday about like what's the high level purpose of this. And so I did want to get into that a little bit. But first, Matt, welcome back to the project. This as an overall disclaimer about this show. This is not one of those shows where we have you on to kind of demo the work that you've done necessarily, because we're kind of just getting back into the project. So it's more of a reintroduction to you, Matt, of the project. What we had you do earlier is we had you helping us with the bin code, encoding and decoding, and just figuring out what the Rust structures are so that we could translate that into JavaScript. And you did that for the create identity transition. And then AJ worked on that. It's not like he was working the whole 5 months, obviously. He's been doing other things and non-Dash stuff as well. But I'm going to bring up my screen share real quick to just give you an idea of what the process is for proposals and things like that, and why we called you up again to help us continue with the work that you started 5 months ago. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And let's see, let's make sure that we're on the right tab. So you should see right now me clicking through some tabs. Yeah. Part of the purpose of these shows is for me to help get you more familiar with Dash. And then it's also to get our audience familiar with you and what you're doing, what you're working on. So you can review this. as well. And I didn't mention this in I gave you a little outline of what we were going to discuss today. I didn't mention this specifically, but I thought about it afterwards. My goal in the Dash Incubator, which the Dash Incubator is, let's just say, mostly me right now. It's been a bigger organization at times, and it's right now, due to budget constraints, it's basically down to me. I'm the only somewhat full-time person in the Dash Incubator, and my goal has shifted since we talked like 5 months ago a little bit. My goal has shifted a little bit. So I'm now focusing more on trying to get the developers that I'm working with and introducing to Dash. I'm trying to get you as quickly as possible on your own two legs doing what I'm doing, which is, I get funded through Dash itself, through what's called the super block. And that's a block that's a block. The term blockchain refers to blocks of transactions. You're familiar with this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to go into all the details, but every month there's what's called a super block that pays out newly created Dash to people who submit proposals on the network. And this is one view. It's actually a little bit of a cleaner view than people might be used to seeing if they haven't seen mnowatch.org recently. It's got a little bit of a UI refresh, so it's got some new colors and whatnot. So one of the reasons that I wanted to show that off. Good job, XK and everybody involved with this, and Black Mirror Designer for helping refresh this. But this is a view of all the proposals that are on the network, and you can see up on the very top there, MNO Watch hosting itself. That's the developer of this site. It asks for a measly one Dash just to help with the hosting costs that are ongoing. So these are monthly payouts. So Dash requested is how much Dash are you requesting from the network? And so he's getting one Dash just to host this site. And one of my goals, like I said, in the incubator is to get people familiar with this process so that you can, instead of just working under my organization, you can work independently, and you'll therefore, get a better idea of like what's going on with Dash and why is it interesting. And so my goal would be that at some point, maybe you can submit your own proposal, and I will tell you how to do that as we go here. But just a little bit more familiarity with what's going on here. Dash Core Group is the biggest organization in Dash. They request 5,147 Dash per month through their main proposal, and then they have other additional proposals that they request more funding from. Dash Growth. This is a reimbursement for some travel expenses. Just giving you an idea, Dash Money is an independent developer. Dash Central Operations. Dash Central is a site that also does something. It hosts the text body of proposals, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail as we go throughout here. Digital Cash Dev is AJ, who you know personally through the Rust meetups and the JavaScript meetups that we have here in Salt Lake City, Utah. He's getting 4 Dash per month to maintain some of the sites that he has hosted that serve Dash. Some marketing stuff, and so you see all of these different proposals. My proposal is somewhere up here. Let's see, Ryan. I'm right here, and this proposal is a proposal that has got this little icon. That means it's not requesting funds this month, but it's requesting funds for next month. And you need both votes and funds to be able to have a successful proposal. So you need, there are certain nodes that are operating on the network that keep the network running. They're called master nodes. Each of those nodes that are running both have to host a service, which is the Dash Core service with all the master node capabilities as well. And then they have to have 1,000 Dash. And in return, they get one vote to vote on proposals like this. So it's kind of like a stake-based voting scheme where if you have stake in the network, then you get voting power in the network. And So that's how this goes. If you to make one of these proposals traditionally has required that you run a full Dash core node and do some RPC commands in a console, kind of technical stuff that somebody like you could figure out, obviously. But we've made it easier by a tool that AJ has made, which is this site right here, proposals.digitalcash.dev, where you can submit a proposal. So, for example, you can ask for a start. You can put your start period in. Let's say you wanted to start 2 months from now. So you'd put your start period as 2, and you want to get paid 3 times, and you want to get paid 75 Dash per month. You'd put those in, and that's saying you're going to request a total of 225 Dash, but it's going to be in 3 payments, and it's going to start next month, not this month. If you wanted to start this month, you'd put 1 in there, and that's what. And then it's changing data underneath. You put in your proposal name. You put in, so you can see the last one I did through this site was the retained DCD AJ proposal. I'm not going to go into that now, but you put in a payment address, a proposal URL. This is where the body of your proposal would be, and then it spits out this proposal JSON object, and then you just pay the 1 Dash fee. So every proposal requires a 1 Dash fee, and so you would pay it. You would send money to the wallet that's behind this application, which was incidentally built with the tools that we built in the incubator through AJ. So we're dog fooding our own work here. So you send it to the application's wallet. The application then pays for your proposal, and then you submit the proposal. And then it, as the network is confirming it and seeing it, relaying it on the network, you'll see a log of of statuses coming through here. And so anyway, that's a tool that you can use in the future if you decide to do this more on a not full-time, but ongoing basis. Let's see here. Now, let me check with my. I want to give you some time to talk here, so I do speak a lot, but I do want to. Let's talk about you now. I want to know again and remind our viewers who you are and what you do with Rust, and what your professional background is. So give us a little bit of information about you.
Sure. I've been a professional software engineer for, I want to say like 15 years now. 10 years-ish, depending on how you want to count this. I've done a lot of variety of work in a lot of different languages. So I started out a lot of my career doing PHP. Don't want to talk about that though. Did Go for a while, and then after working on some Go projects that were open source, at least that's my understanding, Google found that work that I was doing in Go and recruited me.
Google the company, not just Google,
yes,
the search crawler. Yeah.
Yes, I went to work for Google at Google Pittsburgh for 4 years, and did lots of stuff with Java and Go and Python while I was there. Rust was kind of in its early growth period around that time, so it was there was a big explosion of like excitement about trying to figure out how to use Rust at Google, which was complicated for lots of reasons. And so I did kind of poke around with trying to help out with that a little bit, but I didn't really have a lot of time to actually help out with that project at Google much. Yeah, so as far as Rust goes, you asked like what I do with Rust. I have not had an opportunity to use it professionally. So everything that I've done has been on my own terms. However, I will say I'm a bit of a programming language nerd, so I learn new languages, especially the exciting upcoming ones, just for fun.
Mhm.
So I've done several personal projects on Rust that helped me get familiarity with it. I was a part of or I was going to the Rust meetup here in Utah for a while, which AJ was running. So that's how I actually met AJ and you in the process. Um, and then I'll say that I also haven't used JavaScript as a professional thing very much. That's also been something I use on my own time, but I'll say I'm probably most proficient in JavaScript over all of the things that I've done.
Mhm.
When I'm working on projects for myself or my wife, the thing that I reach for is JavaScript, just specifically for the front end interaction component. I've used several different GUI systems before, and the JavaScript web stuff is still my favorite. It seems like it's the easiest to work with. So,
Well, it's got a good platform, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm a self admitted fanboy of JavaScript, because it's the best platform, right? If you think about how code is delivered to people, the web and web browsers, that's one of the best and most decentralized ways to get applications to people. So with Dash Platform, I'm very much an advocate of getting Dash Platform accessible to web developers, because there are so many of them, and it's such a great platform. Like, you can't shut the internet down. You can't. You can shut a domain down, possibly. You can shut IP addresses down, possibly, but it'll just pop up somewhere else, right? So it is a very robust platform that, if it was introduced today as an option that didn't exist before, the governments would ban it, obviously, because it's so powerful. So that's kind of my motivation behind getting Dash Platform into web developers' hands. And to do that, we need a good JavaScript SDK. And a good JavaScript SDK, as far as I'm concerned, is written to be lightweight, performant, fast, um, easy to use, easy to understand, easy to contribute to. And that is, again, why we have you working on this project, with making platform accessible to web developers within a good SDK. So I think I'll share my screen one more time. You said that you don't have, let me see. You said that you don't have professional experience with JavaScript, but I will say, meaning like you haven't really been paid to do JavaScript
right.
specifically. However, I know, because AJ's worked with you, I know enough to know that you do great work, because this dashplatform.js site that, again, we started about 5 or 6 months ago. I think Google's or um, GitHub rounds up, but we started this 6 months ago. You did some work on that, and
You'll have to go to the other branch or the
pull requests.
yeah. See, that's one of the complaints that I have here is that this repository is not being managed very well.
Well, it's been on the back burner. Actually, what I'll do is I'll go to your version of this, which is, what's your username again?
It's Ricochet 1K.
Ricochet.
You're gonna have to get rid of dash hive because that's the username part.
Oh, that's why it's not auto completing. I'll say also Ricochet 1K. There it is. Yeah, so your work was done a little while ago as well.
Yeah, if you want to pop open bincode.js or the test one, those are the ones that I contributed to the most.
And what I wanted to say was that AJ, he doesn't have a lot of high compliments for a lot of people, but as he recently worked through getting platform identity done, he did mention that your work was excellent, and that you basically did it. You basically did it with on the first try. I don't think he had to come back to you and say something's not quite right here. The only struggle that he had was doing signature stuff. So you were able to let's talk about what you did in the past, and then we'll talk about what you're going to do for us in the next 2 weeks. So we're going to put you on a kind of like a 2-week sprint here for continuing this work. But what did you do so far with this?
Yeah, so it seems like a lot of and let's see if I understand this correctly, but the messages that are used in the Dash core for communicating things to do, and also I think also just data stored on the network. I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, bin code is the encoding that is used for a lot of that data. And so if we're going to work with the Dash platform, if we're going to be able to send messages to it and create identities and transactions and all of anything you want to do, you're going to have to use bin code. Mm-hmm. Now, bin code is an encoding that was invented for Rust. So it's a very Rust specific way of thinking about encoding data. And it also turned out that there was no current open source public anything to easily do bin code encoding and decoding with JavaScript. So that's what I did. Bin code is a very straightforward byte encoding, but bytes is kind of a pain to work with in JavaScript, so it was a little bit tricky. But I wrote all the JavaScript scaffolding to kind of do the base level of bin code, how to encode like what is coming next, how long the strings are, that kind of thing. And then what I did was I took all of the structs and messages that are part of the Dash core and platform for specifically creating encodings, and I translated them into JavaScript so that we could use them. We could encode and decode them in a pure JavaScript environment.
Yeah, and you also added these the JavaScript types as well, mm-hmm. which AJ really appreciated. He said that you did that better than probably he even does. What's it called again? Not JavaScript.
So this is JavaScript with the types that are provided by, or those are in JSDoc comments.
JSDoc, that's the word that I was.
I personally prefer TypeScript, and TypeScript is the thing that is actually doing the type checking here. Mm-hmm. So you still kind of need to know a little bit of TypeScript here, but the important thing is this is raw JavaScript, which means it can just be dumped into the browser without any further translation. Whereas TypeScript would require a short build step in order to get to usable JavaScript for the browser.
Yeah. I know AJ prefers the JSDoc syntax, but it is TypeScript using the TypeScript tooling. Okay, so basically all of this was basically this is a big class that does bin code in general. So in theory, mm-hmm. somebody else that's searching around the internet for a JavaScript bin code.
So right here where you're at now, if you scroll up just a little bit further, is where we're getting to the actual Dash specific code.
Dash specific.
So here's the identity create transition. So this is just a translation of the struct in Rust into JavaScript.
Got it. Okay, so all the 500 lines before this is general purpose bin code, encoding, decoding stuff. This is the Dash specific part, and even more specifically, that this is just for creating an identity. You got identity public keys stuff, and instant lock stuff, witness stuff. This is all Dash specific. What's your general gut feeling? I know you haven't really looked into this, and this is the kickoff meeting for the beginning of a 2-week sprint, But what's your gut feeling after you've looked over some things for the past day or so? How difficult is it going to be to do some of the other Dash platform functions in addition to creating an identity?
Oh, it's really easy at this point. Like my process literally is just copy and paste the relevant Rust stuff into this document and then just rewrite all of the Rust parts into JavaScript. Um, it's made to be like as close to the Java as I mean, you can even see in here. I left some of the comments that for
Mm-hmm.
the attributes on the fields in Rust. I left them in here as comments because they were still there, and um, they probably should be removed at some point. But they do have some amount of um, so like the not signable thing is a special thing that is not normally part of bin code. Um, but so the Dash platform has a special version of um, their own like wrapper around bin code that ignores those for when you're signing the transition for the in a non-signable way. Um, so like the way that it works is you have to encode something, and then you have to take those bytes and you have to sign them digitally, and then you have to take the signature and put them in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, if I were to have done that, I would have said, keep those objects separated. Have the core data, and then have the signed version as a completely separate object. They chose not to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They chose to have them all in one struct and to write their own entire macro system, which is or their entire macro to edit them out for doing the JSON or the bin code code generation, which is kind of obnoxious. Um, but it's there and it works.
Or you figured
So
it out.
yeah.
Okay. Now I don't know. I showed you this site yesterday, I think. I don't know if you've had time to look at it too much, but I wanted to get you familiar with this platformexplorer.com, platform-explorer.com. This is where all the transactions that you would see on the network. This is a good user interface to view those and explore those. So, for example, you'll see the transaction history, data contracts. We talked about yesterday, we talked about the three main primitives of Dash platform. You've got identities, and you've got data contracts, and you've got documents. So identities are the basic thing. You need an identity to do anything on Dash platform. That's why we started with the create identity transition that AJ successfully did. We'll look at that in a minute. But then once you have an identity, you can create a data contract, which is basically like making a schema. And then you have documents that adhere to that schema that users would submit as part of applications against those data contracts. And so you can see here with this transactions, you'll have a transaction type. And one of those is identity create. So you can see like an hour ago, somebody created an identity here. Credit withdrawal, there's, the whole idea of blockchains is that there's usually money involved. And so when you transfer Dash from the Dash core chain to the Dash platform chain, that is called a credit top up. It's also done under the hood with identity create because you need money to do things on this. And then the documents batch is kind of like, it's got the create, read, update, delete all in one kind of transition. So documents batch would be creating, modifying. You can see it here on the tooltip, deleting other documents. That's all done in one type of transition. So going forward, we want to have you expand the create identity stuff to doing documents, document batches, and data contract creation as well. So I'm going to go into here and see if we can find where a data contract was created. It's not something that people do often. Like here's another different type that we didn't see before, masternode vote. that's not a priority right now. Right now, we want to get to the point where we can create an identity. That identity can create a data contract, and then you can then create documents against that data contract. So those will be the first 3 that we do. But I just wanted to kind of scroll through here, see if there's another credit withdrawal, for example. I don't think that we'll just find there's an identity top up. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of the different types of things that you're going to be encountering. We've already talked about what the priorities are offline. We've got it written down and everything. Yeah, so we're not going to find one right off the bat, because think about it. People don't create schemas. It's like if you were creating an application, you might have 3 or 4 different schemas, or maybe even just one schema or data contract that you would create, and then after that, all the activity is just people creating documents against those data contracts. So it's not something that's done very commonly. But here, no, that's not it. This is the identity that AJ was able to successfully create on February 18th, just before the last proposal deadline was when he was working on seeing that he could create this identity with the work that you did 5 months ago. He kind of like, okay, let's see if we can get that. And it was successful. This is the specific transaction that proves that he did that. And then, so what we'll want to do is basically get you to the point where you can recreate the process that AJ did, and then create your own identities. You're going to be focusing on the library stuff, building the library to do the bin encoding and stuff. And then AJ is going to take that and continue with the SDK work. But I just wanted to show you right here that you'll be able to validate that stuff is working or not by looking at this and seeing if it was successful. There were a couple attempts when AJ was doing this where he could see it on the Platform Explorer, but this was a failure due to some kind of signature not being correct or whatnot.
Wasn't valid.
Yeah, it wasn't valid. And then this is the other page that I wanted to show you, and anybody else who's interested that's watching, is these are the basic. Here we're at platformexplorer.com/API, and then the specific part of the documentation for decoding raw transactions. But I'm showing you this because these are basically the main primitives of beyond the 3 main ones that we talked about, which was identities, data contracts, and documents. These are some of the broader primitives, I guess you could say. Data contract creation, documents batch, identity create, identity top up. I don't like the terminology personally, but top up is when you add dash to your identity. So you add money to your identity so that you can continue to do things on platform. Data contract updating, identity updating, identity withdrawals. That's the opposite of the top up. And then credit transfer. So you can transfer money from one identity to another. Again, these aren't things that you're going to be focusing on right away. And then master node vote, we saw a bunch of those. So a lot of the activity on Dash platform right now is voting on certain things like contested resources, where if somebody wants to create a Dash platform username, the network kind of approves that. And we won't go into all that in detail right now, but I just wanted to show you these different transaction types might help you as we get a little further along.
I believe if you go down to the bottom of that bincode.js, you'll see that those all are actually listed in my code, but most of them are commented out because they were not part of the original.
Okay, that's over here.
Yeah, I think it's near the bottom.
So it sounds like you've already got, the structure.
Right there, the state transition there. So all of those things you were just pointing out, those are all there, but I didn't do them because they were not part of the original proposal.
Perfect.
So yeah, my thing is just like, I'm going to start by uncommenting all of those lines, and then I'm just going to add stuff until it stops yelling at me that I did something wrong.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like you were a step ahead of me, and that's exactly what I like to see is people who are smarter than me working on this stuff, so that I don't have to worry about it. Let's see. Any questions right now that you have regarding your scope of work for the next 2 weeks? Just as while you're thinking about that, next week we're going to have Anthony come on. Anthony Campolo. He's going to talk about. Let's see. He's going to talk about this proposal that he had as a pre-proposal and is now an actual proposal. He did get some feedback. Let's see. And I have not read this yet. I didn't see it until today. But this is very cool that this Dev Agarwal guy is apparently quite excited about Anthony's project. And this is exactly the reason why I thought Anthony's project is interesting. So we'll talk about his proposal in more detail next week.
I actually like he's talking about Solid and Solid Start. That's my preferred web platform for software that I'm working on. So that's very
you prefer Web.js framework. Yeah, it's mine too, actually, which is why I'm kind of targeting. I've been doing a lot of research on Solid.js because I think it's the best, most performant thing. That's one of the main reasons why I want the JavaScript SDK that you and AJ are building to be awesome. Because people like this, Dev Agarwal, he's on the Solid.js core team. And people like him, when I introduce Dash to him, which I've had some DMs with him already, and some other people in Solid, but I don't want to talk with them in any more detail other than the brief introductions that I've done and just kind of like getting to know them a little bit more on a personal basis. I don't want to talk to them until we have really good tooling to work with, because if we hand them a 5 megabyte JavaScript SDK to work with our backend, with our platform as a service kind of thing, they're going to laugh at us. Like they won't even want to start with that because they've spent years trying to whittle their own framework down to kilobytes in size, like tens of kilobytes. And so asking them to kind of like use an SDK that's 5 megabytes is kind of like, yeah, they're not into that. They're into performance. They're the best framework as far as I'm concerned, because they have such a high bar for performance and things like that, and keeping things small and fast, things like that. So it was cool to see this. I haven't even really read this yet, but it's cool to see that he's got interest in the wider space. That's exactly why I want Dash to be sponsoring his project. And so people like Dev and people like Ryan, who created Solid, and people like Dave, who's involved with the Solid.js project as well, who I've spoken with, they can eventually see that, hey, Dash is like sponsoring some work for the guys that are building with their tools and stuff. Anyway, that's
hey, week. Just real quick, I'm really curious what this is even talking about, because like I've never seen this before.
Okay.
Auto Show looks to me like it's a tool for automatically summarizing with an LLM the content of a discussion.
Yes. It's more than that, but that's part of it. Yes.
And so it's like this is talking about, like, it's summarizing a discussion that he had with talking about Solid and Solid Start with WebSockets, which is interesting. What does this have to do with Dash?
Yeah, so Anthony, AJC Web Dev, he's somebody that has blockchain experience and who I've run through the incubator and has worked with me. He used to be a co-host of this show, actually. And he, on the side, was working on a project, this project for Auto Show, and he's going to integrate Dash payments into his project.
Oh, okay.
And
he wants to be able to be paid for it. That sounds very reasonable.
Yeah, because it's a SaaS. It's a software as a service, and software as a service ideal is in our perfect world.
LLMs are expensive to run, so
Well, it's a great candidate for crypto payments because anytime you have a purely digital product is something that would make a lot of sense to have a purely digital payment system to be able to purchase that product. But beyond that, he's also going to be putting some. He's going to be doing some Dash platform stuff as well. So anyway, this is like the flagship project that I think will gain visibility outside of our Dash bubble. That kind of marries the two, where he's doing some Dash stuff, at least payments, but probably platform as well. It's going to be a 6-month long proposal and thing. So the only reason I brought this up, I didn't want to talk too much about it because we're going to be talking with him tomorrow, not tomorrow, but next week. And then after that, the week after that, we're going to have you on and potentially AJ on again to talk about the progress that you've made on what we've been talking about today with these different transition types beyond identity create. And I'm hoping that you can get as far as you can. The ideal is that we'll eventually have all of these done and that we can do anything that will have feature compatibility with the Rust SDK, but that will be much better for JavaScript developers to work with. That's the goal. I don't know if 2 weeks is enough time to do that, but I
think it should be.
You might be able to get your part done within 2 weeks, but building it into the SDK, AJ's part, which he was funded for, I didn't really go over that, but yeah, he did get his proposal passed for the JavaScript SDK platform support. He did get that proposal passed. Unfortunately, his other one didn't pass, but it was a tight month for funding, so there wasn't room for all of it. So, any other questions? I said, do you have any questions? And then I gave you some time to think about that, but I don't know if you took any time to think about what you have questions about. It just could be Dash in general, anything that we talked about today. Yeah, what questions do you have?
I don't think I have any questions at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, great. That's let's see. Let me just check and see if there's any questions from the viewers, and then if not, we'll wrap it up. Let's see. Where is my StreamYard? It doesn't look like we have any questions either. So yeah, we will go back to us. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks and welcome back after the 5-6 month hiatus. I'm excited. I'm really excited to get you working on the JavaScript SDK again, so that we can have a great product to show to guys outside of our bubble who are going to be ruthlessly, I just want a great product. And so let's give it to them.
All right.
And look forward to having Anthony on next week. So until then, thanks guys for tuning in, and we'll